Our new Constitution is now established and has an appearance that promises permanency. But in this world, nothing can be said to be certain, except death and taxes.
Now, maybe you've heard that quote before, or a variation of it. Now, do you know who said it and when? It was Benjamin Franklin, but it wasn't in a TikTok post. It was actually in a letter that he wrote to a French physicist back in 1789. And according to the authors of a paper from the University of Toronto, property tax, the system we have right now, has been levied in Canada since at least 1793, when the first Assessment Act was passed in what was then Upper Canada. And it's a system of taxation that's been paying for services for centuries, using something known as a mill rate or millage. That's a fee per $100 assessment based on market value. It's still the system we're familiar with, or at least we should be. And it's still one that makes people, well, upset. Are you outraged? I can understand if you are. Now, it's very easy to be upset by what's going on around us. Becoming informed, well, that's always a lot more work. Now, I want you to stay tuned, because you're going to want to hear why it's more important now than ever to listen to the news and become engaged in what might be described as the most boring and detailed process that will ever impact your wallet. This month, in January, the 2024 assessments were mailed out to 647,470 property owners across Nova Scotia. And a lot of people right now are more than a little freaked out by assessments that are way up. In fact, in Halifax Regional Municipality, they're up 17.5% for residential property owners. So what does this mean? Is it going to be a double-digit hike in your taxes this year because of the red-hot real estate market? This is Thinking Out Loud, my podcast. I'm Sheldon McLeod, and this is an episode about assessments and taxes, and it's brought to you by SaltWire.
I'm Jeff Cadell, and I'm an assistant director with Property Valuation Services Corporation. Property Valuation Service Corporation, or PVSC, we're an independent, not-for-profit organization, and we're funded by the province's 49 municipalities because we provide a core service for them. We're legislated by the Nova Scotia Assessment Act to assess all properties in the province at market value, and we assess properties on an annual basis, and that's industry best practice. And this year, we've mailed over 647,000 assessment notices to property owners. And important to remember, too, just a few things that the PVC does not do. We do not create tax policy. We don't set property tax rates. We don't collect property taxes. And it's not our role to provide property tax relief.
Well, just like you, I'm one of the many Nova Scotians facing a higher assessment for my property. So what does it mean? And what can you do about it? And how much time do you have?
Yeah, and there's some important dates to keep in mind when we're looking at those assessment notices for 2024. The assessed value on the 2024 notice, it's a reflection of market value as of January 1st, 2023. So it's actually a year ago that we're using market data. But included in that value is the state of the property at December 1st, 2023. So if the property has changed in any way over the course of 2023, that value would reflect that also.
So how do they come up with your assessment? What drives it?
Yeah, sure. So assessments are going to follow the market. And I talked about that January 1st, 2023 base date, or that's our date of valuation, meaning that we're studying the sales that occurred during 2022 in the lead up to that base to help us understand what was happening in the market during that time frame. And to your point on the volume of sales, we reviewed close to 40,000 sales transactions that took place in 2022. And our assessors review that, to understand the market areas across the province and to understand what's happening in those market areas. So the 2024 assessed values are really based on what was happening in the market back in 22 back in 2022 in those months leading up to our base date of 2023.
Halifax's deputy mayor says she's getting questions about what the assessment means when it comes to your individual tax bill and what HRM residents get in return for that money.
My name is Kathy Daigle-Gammon. I am the councillor for District 1. It's one for a reason, because it's awesome. Waverley, Fall River, and Musquodoboit Valley, and about 40 communities in between, from Dartmouth Barry's Run to Lemon Hill and Dean. Awesome. And I also now have the privilege of being deputy mayor. Well, I wasn't surprised, and that's because there were a couple of properties that sold, one on my cul-de-sac, another on an adjacent street, and they sold for very good prices in my estimation. And so as a result, our assessment went up by $100,000.
Now, does that mean everyone will pay more?
And the reality is that we don't know just how much of an increase that's going to be until we finish the budgeting process. Well, mostly our questions are still, what is the aspect of that assessment and what does it mean for when I get my tax bill? Like, what's the difference? So we get a lot of questions about that. I would say, coming into my fourth budget year, most of the questions now are not so much really about the assessment as much as they are about the transparency of the budgeting process within HRM and making sure that the residents in my district know exactly what they think. So I get lovely comments about the policing budget, about the lack of transit, about what services are we paying for, what are regional services, what are local services. So there's a lot of detail. So I think an informed community is probably the best kind of community. So the more questions, the better.
And is market value property assessment millage rates the best system?
I think in the moment, it's the best of all evils. I think that there is a desire within this council to see how can we make it more fair.
Carolyn Bolivar-Getson, and I'm the president of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. The Federation represents the 49 municipalities across the province and works with different levels of government to make sure that their voices are heard. So I've been on the phone for the last week with residents in relation to the assessments that have gone out. And the CAP program was intended to protect Nova Scotians from sudden and dramatic increases in their property assessment. And I guess that's truly happening at this point in time, because I'm hearing from residents whose assessments have gone up over 100%. And for no known reason. It is based on market value. And I guess that is, and we have to keep in mind that the assessment roll that has just gone out is based on those values as of January 1st, 2022. So it's playing the catch up to the market and how hot the market was back in January of 2022.
Along with the role that she took on recently, Carolyn Bolivar-Getson is mayor of the District of Lunenburg on Nova Scotia's South Shore. That's a role she's held since 2016. She was also a provincial MLA and a cabinet minister before that. Now, it's not just you and me who are feeling the effects of the increased costs of living these days.
I look at how much roads cost now to pave, how much sewer lines are, how much these things are. Not only is the assessments going up, but every bit of the economy, whether it's hiring someone, the construction industry, everything, we're seeing huge increases. And again, it goes back to that uniform assessment and the amount of payments that municipalities will still, for education, be contributing to the province. Those are huge increases. So an increase in assessment and even a stable taxation rate is going to still mean increased costs to our residents. And we need to balance that level of service that we're committed to providing to our residents and how we can look at ways. We need to look at other revenue streams. And it's important for municipalities and other levels of government to recognize that municipalities need other levels of revenue in order to maintain this. We cannot continue to expect the resident to bear the blunt of these increased costs. and this infrastructure deficit.
She points to how federal and provincial sales tax have increased the revenue for those levels of government because higher costs for everything equal higher GST and HST amounts. Now, back to what has caused some assessments to increase by such large amounts in the last few years. Again, Jeff Cadell with PVSC. So you don't agree with the number. What exactly is your recourse?
Yeah, so with notices being mailed on January 8th, that kicks off a 31-day appeal period. So if owners disagree with the market value assessment, they have until midnight of February 8th to file an appeal with us. What the owner needs to do is to fill out the form on the bottom of their notice, sign and date it, and return it to us by email, mail, or fax. And we have to receive it by midnight on February 8th. And then what happens, so the first level of appeal is really an assessor will review, it'll be signed to an assessor, and assessor will review that appeal. They'll look at the grounds of appeal, and they'll contact the property owner and review the data and review the market data in the vicinity of that owner's property. And they'll discuss market value and what's been happening in the market and whether that assessed value is falling within range of market value in that particular area.
Last year, people also saw a huge increase in assessments. And last year, there was more than 32,000 inquiries and 13,000 appeals. And what are they expecting this year?
Well, we're expecting a regular volume, perhaps similar to last year, but it's hard to say. I think, another option that's available for property owners is we ask property owners if they have questions for us to give us a call. We have assessors now who are available and taking calls from property owners. It's really a great opportunity for us to speak to the property owner and discuss their own property, but for us to speak to market value, the change in market in their particular area. So I think property owners are becoming familiar. Certainly in the media over the last few years, there's been a lot going on in the real estate market, and people are aware of how values have been changing.
I definitely knew my phone was going to start ringing, but I definitely, at this point in time, looking at the cap that was in place and what I'm hearing from residents is that please do not remove the cap.
And what exactly is the property assessment cap?
Sure. So the capped assessment program, it's a provincial program that PVC administers on behalf of the province. And the intent of the program is to limit the amount of taxable increase in assessment. It's based on the consumer price index in Nova Scotia. So for this year, the province provides that rate to us each year. And this year, the cap rate is set at 3.2%, meaning that the taxable increase will be limited to 3.2% if the property is eligible for the cap. It's also important to speak to new construction. New construction is not eligible for cap. So if there's been new construction occur on a property during 2023, that portion of the value attributed to that new construction would not be capped. So owners might see an increase larger than the 3.2%, but if there's been nothing changed at the property, that market increase is limited to 3.2%, and that's used as the taxable assessment. So each year we calculate both a market value assessment and a cap assessment for the eligible residential properties, and the lesser of the two is what the municipality will use to calculate taxes for that property.
And as Deputy Mayor Kathy Deagle-Gammon with HRM says, people are going to want to pay attention to the budgeting process over the next few months, because program spending and capital costs are all factors in the budget, which affects the rate, the tax rate.
There's the other side, I think, of whatever the decision is that's made is how do we as a municipality support those persons that this tax bill is going to put them in jeopardy of maybe having to change their lifestyle or change how they live or where they live. And so I look very strongly at what are the programs that we have for tax relief. Look at how do we support people with any kind of a program, a payment plan for taxes to make things easier for people. We absolutely don't want to put people in a position where they have to leave their home. That is the absolute worst case scenario. And so we need to figure out, yes, we've got this budget and it has to be a balanced budget and we have to figure out how to pay for it. On the other side, where that negatively affects people and how they live, then what is possible within HRM? What other options that do we have that we can support people? That's an important piece of the story as well.
As she says, a lot of moving parts that influence the final rates.
Sometimes I'll get an email from a resident and they'll say, it's simple, just do this. And my God, wouldn't it be great if it was simple? But it's never simple. Like it's a huge, I call it my huge puzzle. The budget journey, it's just a lovely one, but it is this huge puzzle, and making all the pieces fit in the right way it's a good piece of work.
As the president of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities says, this is going to impact lives and is the result of a red-hot real estate market.
No, again, what people are seeing here for increased in their assessment, it's real. And it's real to residents who are struggling at this point in time. And any increase in expenditures are definitely something that we need to take serious and look at. So we need to understand that from a homeowner perspective, that the cap may be another piece of the affordability puzzle at this point in time. And it's tough out there right now. And like I said, I really think that based on this being January of 2022, this assessment roll, I expect to see another significant increase next year. And that's not something I know that anyone wants to hear, but it's just the market reality at the moment.
And again, PVSC is ready and waiting for your questions.
Well, first, I think I would encourage owners, if they have questions around their assessment, is to give us a call. Our assessors are available. I'll give the number, 1-800-380-7775, or they can email us at inquiry@pvsc.ca. And those assessors that are available on the phones, they can answer market value questions. They can review the market data with property owners. And I think that really gives the owner, they may not be happy with the explanation, but they're going to understand market and how we derive those values a bit better. Certainly, if the appeal were to proceed, when property owners, either when they're dealing with the assessor or dealing with the first level of the assessment appeal process, it's based on market evidence. So that's what we would be speaking to property owners about, is does this assessed value fairly represent market value at the date of valuation, which is January 1st, 2023.
And in the end, it's a municipal politician that ends up setting the tax rate, not PVSC.
Yeah, I mean, at PVSC, we study the market and we report the market and value properties at market value as legislated by the Nova Scotia Assessment Act. And it's up to the municipalities what happens with the tax rate. We can't predict what they will do, and we leave that up to them.
For the latest on the HRM budgeting process and for news that matters, tune into SaltWire and become a member. And let me know if this was helpful to you. Please like and subscribe and add your comment or rating. I'm Sheldon McLeod for SaltWire. Thanks for listening.
Turn off the noise. Tune in to what matters. What matters is information you can trust. What matters is the news you can use to make life's big decisions. Informed healthcare choices, casting the smart vote, or opening that business. What matters is understanding the world around you. Let SaltWire connect you to what matters with unlimited access to the information you need for only $20 for the first year. Become a member today.